How is it possible? How did he pull it off? Was he holding it back the whole time? No, that just can't be. That just can't be. Okay, so part 3. Let's wrap things up with episodes 35 through 49 of Heartcatch Precure. What the hell was that all about? With the series reaching its finale, one of the most important subplots in the show reaches its climax, the fashion show. What, Rarity and I can't be the only ones who care about this, right? But yeah, with the cultural festival only 3 days away, the fashion club had to kick it into high gear. Or at least they would have, had it not been for the fact that the majority of the club members were a part of the student committee and thus had other duties to attend to. Again, all that bribery stuff keeps coming back to bite you in the ass, doesn't it, Erika? Things aren't helped out when Tsubomi's selflessness pulls her away from her club duties to help out other recurring characters. It just becomes chaotic as the time winds down. And to be honest, as far as non-superhero stuff goes, I find this kind of interesting. While mostly played up for laughs, I think there's also some decent drama here, as pretty much everything that could go wrong does go wrong for the poor fashion club. I don't know, maybe it's because I've seen so many cultural festival episodes in anime that I've developed a taste for it, but this is pretty entertaining to me. Hell, it makes me kind of wish we didn't have to go through the requisite MOTW made from a victim who was on screen for all of 20 seconds beforehand just to establish his very obvious role in this show.
What is my purpose?
You pass butter.
Oh my god.
Yeah, welcome to the club, pal.
Granted, it was still a good Yuri solo fight, complete with an awesome intro song by her actress no less, so I can't really complain. But, you know, could we just go back to focusing on the cultural festival and everything? We get a bunch of callbacks, including those idiot Kung Fu brothers who will likely face assault charges later. And we also get to see how things turned out for the victim from the last episode. They're playing a bear movie next door, I think. Tsubomi is understandably nervous over the show, but I really don't think there's anything that they should really be that concerned about. Okay, go ahead and hit the panic button. Yeah, apparently since they managed to convince Momoka, who is a professional model, to be a part of the show, it was decided that the fashion club would get the main event slot based on the likely large crowd turnout. However, they did learn that because of this, the light music club was bumped down the card. Feeling bad, they go to apologize, only to find that maybe it was for the best as the club was falling apart anyway. $10 says it was all Yui's fault. Actually, it was because the main vocalist of the band, Aya and Mayu, had gotten cold feet. Fun fact, these two are voiced by Ai Ikeda and Mayu Kudo respectively, two famous J-pop singers who had provided many of the songs for this franchise, including this show. Mayu Kudo had actually previously guest starred in Yes Precure 5 alongside another singer, Kanako Miyamoto. Miyamoto would later develop into a decent VA. And even land an actual Precure role later. These two, on the other hand... Yeah, stick to singing, ladies, and thankfully they didn't give them too many lines to flub up in this episode. Why couldn't they do the same for Audrey? But yeah, just to shorten their roles, Cobra arrives to steal both their heart flowers. The resulting MOTW fight is good, but it's quickly overshadowed by the fashion show. No, I'm not kidding, this is one of the best scenes in this anime. Due to the monster attack, the Light Music Club had lost their time slot, but Erika decides to make it up to them by letting them provide the tunes for their show. This pretty much leads into a very God knows-esque concert scene with their song Heart Goes On. This scene also does a great job at highlighting the development of each of the main heroines. I'll just to see more during the character analysis at the end of the review, but needless to say, great animation and music makes this one of the most memorable scenes in the entire anime. Next up, we have a two-parter where... Why do I keep almost blacking out? Anyway. While trying to have a nice little tea party to celebrate the success of the cultural festival, the Precure are forced into action when a Desertrian-esque monster attacks. It proves formidable, but with some good attack spamming, it was quickly vanquished, or so they thought. As it turns out, it was actually a messenger for Dune who wanted to show off his new Death Star knockoff. Though instead of blowing up planets, it launches what's called a desert seed, a weapon that almost instantly kills off all plant life on a planet, turning the surface into nothing but a desert. He launches one such attack at Earth, with only a few hours before their planet becomes the setting for the next Mad Max movie. The Precure needed to do some serious level grinding so that they would be ready to launch a successful counterattack. Thus they decided to head back to the Precure Palace, as apparently there was still one more trial that should they pass it, they would unlock their true powers. After entering the portal, the palace decided to speed things up a little by instantly transporting each Precure to their respective trials, which each look like a backdrop from the Evangelion finales. Next thing you know, they're gonna have existential battles with their inner selves or something like that. And right on cue. Again, more analysis later, but essentially all of them involve the Precure fighting shadows of their former selves, reflections on who they were at the beginning of the series but have long since outgrown. Though that doesn't mean they outright reject their shadows and in fact embrace them, as they are equally an important part of what defines them alongside their current selves. Last time, I made some slight Persona references, but looks like this time we're going full on 4, though thankfully not nearly as over the top.
It's like steam rising from sweat. My body's tingling with excitement.
Everyone finishes their trials around the same time, except for Tsubomi, as she probably had the most baggage to unpack. Figures the one character voiced by a future Persona actress would have the most difficult trial. FYI, Nana Mizuki, on top of being a Precure fangirl, is also into Persona. Lady just keeps landing whatever role she wants, doesn't she? Meanwhile, the desert seed had finally arrived on Earth. It lands right next to the palace and hatches into what's called the Desert Devil, which is actually the monster from the OP. Yet somehow, I don't think it's going to be as easy to take down as it is there. Still, the Precure tried to buy Tsubomi as much time as they can. Well, Erika's brain should be scrambled if that thing managed to produce smoke on her forehead that remains there for a while. Then again, with her steel-plated forehead, maybe it's not that big a deal. Meanwhile, Tsubomi's trials continue. Yeah, they'll all be dead, but hey, I'm sure everything will work out in the end. Yeah, obviously Shao Tsubomi was full of it, so the real Tsubomi gave her a proper talking down to. With those words, Tsubomi finally completes her trial, and with Heart Goes On playing behind her, she joins her friends in battle. If the previous episode was the Haruhi God Knows moment for the show, then this was definitely the Gren Lagann Happily Ever After moment for the show. It even concludes with the Precure unlocking their new super modes and finisher, in which a giant goddess-like being appears and punches the living crap out of the poor devil monster. Jesus, brutal much, guys? Oh yeah, I totally believe he's going out happy after that massive right hand. But yeah, with the day one, the Precure reflect on what they had learned from their trials, and the episode ends with a beautiful shot of Tsubomi looking back at everything she had accomplished. And that was the Heartcatch Mirage two-parter, often cited as not only being the best episodes of this season, but a couple of the best episodes in the entire franchise. Really, I gotta say, Takashi Yamada outdid himself, cause this was... What, Yamada did rate these episodes?
Yeah.
Okay, then who did? Kuriyama?
Yeah.
Inoue?
Yeah.
Ito?
Yeah.
Okay, then who?
Yeah.
Yone Mura. Oh, I see. There just so happens to be another person on staff who's named Yonemura too. Oh. Shoji Yonemura. As in that and that Shoji Yonemura. He wrote a story where heroes actually acted like heroes instead of hypocritical asshats, and actually took time to develop them as opposed to just jumping from one action set piece to the next. Okay, well, that makes sense. That just makes perfect sense. It just all makes so much sense. Okay, there's a lot I could talk about in regards to the main peaks and valleys representing Shoji Uemura's writing quality, but let's save talking about that for another day and just remain focused at the task at hand. Oh god. Anyway, after that, we get an episode where Erika loses her wand after she tries to clean her room with it. There we go, a trashy episode to balance out with the good writing. Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is pretty much an inconsequential little filler episode. It does have little vignettes where we get to see the development of each of our main heroines, but other than that, nothing really notable aside from this nightmare face made by Confrey. Seriously, this franchise has developed quite the portfolio already. Episode 40 opens with an MLTW fight. Jeez, even the staff has realized the shelf life on these guys has long since passed. No, actually, the real takeaway from this fight was that Sasarina again was swaying away from the forces of evil. Apparently her redarkening was only a temporary solution. Meanwhile, Itsuki was resigning from her student council president position and was thinking of handing the position down to her vice president.
僕が生徒会長になった暁にはこうして僕は女性と全ての憧れの的となり
Oh my god, this is how far the victims of the week have degraded, my friends. One of the final guys is a literal copy and paste background character. Oh, thank you for that, Precure. I needed that. Anyway, Itsuki rightfully calls out this guy as a bit of a horn dog, leaving him open to an attack by Sasarina. Realizing that her days as a villainess were coming to a close, her comrades lent her their dark bracelets, hoping it would give her triple the power. And sure enough, she got a significant power boost, enough to turn the main section of the school into a desert treant. Oh boy, could somebody call Ryuko? We need her to destroy another monster school. Sasarina pretty much trounces the Precure and would have finished them off had the power output from her bracelets not overtaxed her stamina. Stunned, the Precure took advantage and finished off Sasarina for good, her allies acknowledging her time was up. Fully purified, Sasarina dissolves into heart flowers, revealing that she was pretty much a humanized Ezetrian. The flowers return to their comatose host, reducing the apostles down to 2. Following this, we get a filler episode featuring the fairies acting as hand puppets at a preschool.
You'd better hurry up and write that apology!
Yeah, only notable thing about this episode was how Sabak was in the middle of patching up Dark Precure, which is brought up at the beginning of the next episode anyway. So if it's all the same to you guys, I vote we skip the crying brats altogether. Though nothing much happens in the next episode either. The main plot focuses on some kid who has a crush on Yuri. It's really a whole lot of nothing. The more interesting developments were Cobra Job finally revealing his kind of insane motivations for working for Sabak, and Dark Precure returning, possibly even stronger than before. Episode 43 opens with Tsubomi and her father rushing to the hospital after learning that her mother had been admitted after suffering a sudden case of nausea. She was alright, as it turns out it was a case of morning sickness. great news and everything, but I gotta ask, how old is Mrs. Hanasaki? Whatever the case, Mrs. Hanasaki leaves to live with her parents through the first few months of labor, and as a result, Tsubomi has to help out at the flower shop. She ends up taking on some unusual clientele.
2人は親に結婚を反対されてずっと式を挙げていなかったんです。でも子供が2人生まれてようやく結婚を許してもらえ
Seriously? It took 2 shotgun shells before the parents would allow this couple to get married? By any chance, is one of the families involved in all this named Soma? Because they seem more than a little screwed up. Anyway, to act as a foil to Tsubomi, who was excited over the impending arrival of her new sibling, the first daughter of the shotgun couple was afraid her new sibling would steal away her parents' affection from her. I admit, it's interesting to see how a significant age gap can affect a child's perception on how younger siblings will affect family dynamics. Other than that, nothing much else happens in this episode. Kumojaki makes an MOTW out of the little girl's flowers, and in spite of his training and a fairly awesome looking MOTW, he's still promptly defeated. Jeez, you'd think something big would happen by now, like maybe the big bad shows up or... Wait, is the Christmas episode next?
クリスマスの奇跡 キュアフラワーに会えました。
Oh, okay then. Yeah, rule of thumb, 9 times out of 10, a Christmas episode in a toy production involves some kind of major plot development.
クリスマス商戦の時期に合わせ新ロボが華々しく派手に大勝利を収めるために公認戦隊を完膚なきまでに叩きのめす強敵の現れる季節なんだ。
But before we get there, Tsubomi has to make the wishes of one little girl come true on Christmas. Apparently, she was a compulsive liar who, as a means of garnering attention, said she was friends with the Precure. Hearing this, Tsubomi agreed to help arrange a meeting with the Precure. Okay, so obviously this girl is going to be the victim of the week, who because of her lies is going to learn that...
誰だ？
Oh wait, it's somebody else? Okay, then who's this guy?
俺も彼女欲しい。でもいいんだ。俺にはプリキュアがいる。
Oh, a lonely middle-aged guy who happens to be a fan of the Precure. Well, I can't imagine what this is meant to be a representation of. Say, Toy Animation, could I have a little word with you in the back? Anyway, since duty comes first, the Precure were forced to head out, leaving Karako to watch over the kids. Working together, Kumojaki and Kobraja managed to produce a far more powerful MOTW than normal. They actually managed to freeze the Precure solid, but again, these villains are really bad at dealing out finishing blows, and instead of killing them when they had a chance, they instead decided to try and kill a random Christmas tree. Top tier villains here, folks. And as it just so happens, it was the Christmas tree that the little girl and her friends were standing right in front of while waiting for the Precure. With no other choice, Karako decided to dust off her Precure seat and pull off an Adam Park from Power Rangers in Space.
聖なる光に輝く一輪の花キュアフラワー
And her transformation conveniently involved de-aging her. Then again, I have seen Tokusatsu heroes shave off a few pounds instantly, so maybe I shouldn't be that surprised. As Cure Flower, she utterly curb stomps the Apostle duel. She then frees the current team and lets them deal the finishing blow. The Precure give the victim a card, which I'm sure a lot of fanboys would like, and they hold a mini meet and greet for the girl and her friends. So everyone goes home happy and everything seems to wrap up nicely. But again, toy-produced Christmas episode. Don't expect it to end that nicely.
久しぶりだね、キュアフラワー。
彼が砂漠の王
Doom was seeking the powers Karako had sealed away from him inside the Heartcatch Mirage. Obviously, the Precure weren't just gonna give it to the guy.
大体砂漠のって言ったって全然迫力ないじゃん。
Erika, you need to catch up on your toy anime if you honestly think this is his final form. Sure enough, even in this sealed form, he wipes the floor with them. Even Kope tries to get in on the action, and he just gets blown away for his troubles. Dune captures Karako and regains his sealed powers, transforming into an even greener river. Good god, can this actor play a non-pretty boy more than once in a blue moon? And since this is a toy production, they gotta crank up the we're all screwed meter up to 11 now that we're reaching the finale. So, Dune kills the Great Heart Tree and launches multiple Desert Devils to attack Earth.
Well, we're boned.
Within less than a day, the entire planet is covered in sand and almost every living creature is crystallized. The Precure are about ready to give up until they gain some moral support from all of the previous victims of the week. Apparently, being rescued by the Precure had given them the fortitude to overcome the effects of the Desert Devils. Personally, I theorize it's more like the chicken pox, you catch it once and you build up immunity, but hey, whatever encourages our heroines. After defeating another Desert Devil, the Precure blast off to their final battlefield. After easily plowing their way through some poorly animated mooks, the team splits up with Erika and Itsuki staying behind to deal with Kumojaki and Kobraja. Appropriately enough, Itsuki fights the dude who once took her heart flower, while Erika and Kumojaki fought over who was the more hot-headed of the two. Both Precure end up having really good battles, though I would say Erika versus Kumojaki was the better of the two in terms of action. Erika even manages to dress down Kumojaki by pointing out how meaningless his pursuit for strength is. With that, both apostles are purified and their flowers return to their hosts. Tsubomi and Yuri, who had gone ahead, end up running into Dark Precure. Yuri goes one-on-one with her, while Tsubomi proceeded to rescue Karako. After doing so, she raced back to provide backup for Yuri, but not before Karako warned her not to let Sabak and Yuri fight each other, as she had deduced there was some connection between the two. Meanwhile, Erika and Itsuki rendezvous and are about to head up to do the same with the others, but end up running into a bunch of snackies.
倒してもキリがない
Curse them and their reused animation! Seriously, guys, come on. Again, I must emphasize, the Snackies are probably the most pathetic foot soldiers since the Stormtroopers, as they even comply when Erika calls for a timeout.
I knew it, I'm surrounded by assholes.
Going back to more engaging fights, Tsubomi ends up taking on Sabak after he starts attacking Yuri.
ちっぽけでも史上最弱のプリキュアでもみんなの心を必ず守ってみせます。
With those words, Tsubomi manages to launch a significant counterattack against Sabak, and in the middle of all of this, Sabak takes a hit for Dark Precure, and... Well, I've already referenced the Stormtroopers and the Death Star, may as well.
I am your father. That's not true! That's impossible! And Princess Leia is your sister. That's not true! That's improbable!
This revelation, understandably, blue screens Yuri for a bit, not helped by her father not bothering to explain anything. But thankfully, Tsubomi is there to give a pep talk.
私の憧れる強くて優しいユリさんは決して自分に負けるような人ではありません。
Thus, Yuri has one last battle with her longtime rival in which she comes out on top. The series' penultimate episode is pretty much the Sakuga episode, but before we get there, Daichi Kage has some explaining to do. He tried to track down the Great Heart Tree in the hopes that it would spread peace and harmony throughout his world, and was tricked into joining forces with Dune, not realizing he would bring upon the Earth's destruction instead. Nah, you're being too hard on yourself, dude. You're just a guy who thought you could achieve world peace by finding a magical heart tree, while also happening to abandon your wife and kid. Yeah, fun fact, according to an official novelization, the first time Yuri transformed into Moonlight came as a result of her mother getting her heart flower stolen. And the only reason she became susceptible to such was because she was pissed off at her husband for leaving them behind. Father of the year, folks. Also, take note of these two, we'll be seeing more of them soon enough. Dave Darius goes on to explain Dark's origins.
心の胎児を研究して手に入れた技術とお前の体の一部を使って作られたお前の妹だ
Well, actually, that's more of a clone, but hey, you're the scientist who saw MLP and thought the Tree of Harmony was based off a real thing. Dark perishes, but in her last moments, she smiles at her somewhat sister. Alright, my snark aside, that was actually a nice scene. Say, why don't we let the villainous pretty boy ruin the mood? Tsubomi, Yuri, and the reformed Sabak try to take down Dune, but just get another being for their troubles. In order to protect his daughter, Sabak takes a blow for her, dying in the process. Yuri, having lost another person close to her, is ready to go on the warpath against Dune, until...
憎しみのまま戦えばきっと負けてしまいます。悲しみや憎しみは誰かが歯を食いしばって断ち切らなくちゃダメなんです。私が憧れたキュアムーンライト。あなたが何をしたいのか、何をするべきなのか、何のために戦うのか、自分で考えてください。
The student becomes the teacher.
プリキュア、オープンマイハート。
The two gain their second win, and after being joined by Erika and Itsuki, the team seemingly defeats Dune once and for all. Wait, was that his second or third form? Second, definitely second. Did he just fire off a beam from his forehead? Oh, you know your villain is done when he starts pulling tricks out of the Poochie Idol playbook. And sure enough, the Precure defeat him by all merging with the Heartcatch Mirage and going full on Tengen Toppa. Alright, this is gonna be awesome. Huh, well that was disappointing. Whoa! Jeez, lady, don't go starting a new Big Bang. Oh, I hope that didn't bother anyone.
Come on, come on. Yes! Another altar. Just need one more to max out her NP. That's odd. The forecast didn't predict any supernovas today.
We time skip at least a year later since Tsubomi's mom has given birth to her sister Futaba and oh Jesus!
Here he is!
Guys, I really don't think the fairies' design work on humans. That baby just doesn't look right. But yeah, the Precure managed to purify Dune and thus life on Earth returned to normal. The former apostles returned to their bodies with no memories of the past few years, a new great heart tree was beginning to sprout, and the Precure were now free to pursue their own dreams. Itsuki began embracing more of her feminine side, Erika was working to become a pro fashion designer, Yuri likely has to go through a lot of therapy after all the crap the writers put her through, and Tsubomi wanted to become an astronaut.
Oh, okay. What?
Okay, that's a big ass jump, but I guess as long as you don't make the same mistakes as most modern movie astronauts, then I guess you'll be alright. And thus, Heartcatch Precure, the series that really pushed the concept of legacy heroines, ends with the torch again being passed down to the next generation. This series is often considered what springboarded the Precure franchise into the more international consciousness, and after rewatching it, it's hard not to see why. It was fun and colorful enough to grab the attention of its target audience, and yet felt grand and epic enough to also attract an older audience. And both audiences, I should hope, stuck around for the amazing characters and world building. It just did a lot right, from its writing to its character designs to its action. There were a few slip-ups here and there, but let's examine it one step at a time, starting off with presentation. As I said before, I love Yoshihiko Umakoshi's designs. They have a more Showa-era anime aesthetic. Bigger, more expressive eyes, and lankier body builds. Really, it's no wonder he's often commissioned for shows that harper back to that era. And really, in this era of anime where character designs have become way too homogenized, looking at you, A1, it's nice seeing more unique designs inspired by a bygone era. Now, that doesn't mean I like all of the designs here. Really didn't care for the fairies' designs and Tsubomi's little sister. Actually, a lot of the kids' designs look off, with their heads looking at about a size too big for their bodies. That aside, I overall do like the aesthetic of the show, even a few nightmare faces here and there. And what they actually do with these designs is pretty great too. Repeated animation aside, the action is clearly taking a step up from Fresh with far more fluid movement, supported by Umakoshi's more flexible character designs. While it does get kind of cartoony at times, the scenes still feel like they have a good amount of impact to them. In fact, some of it feels oddly familiar. Did I forget to mention some of Umakoshi's other jobs? Yeah, I wasn't exactly kidding when I brought up the Gurren Lagann comparisons. He provided the key animation for 3 episodes of that series, including the final episode and the Lagann Hen. So of course, Toei let him direct the animation for several episodes here, including the final 2. This man is a treasure to the industry. Sound-wise, it was also great, as all his OPs and EPs were very catchy, but I think this was one of the first seasons to really use insert songs to their full potential, with Heart Goes On being a standout. Granted, I wish they had used it a little bit more sparingly. They used it like 3 times over the final 14 episodes. But when you've got an amazing song, I guess it's hard not to want to use it. But yeah, combine great music with the talents of some veteran voice actors and you got a great sounding series. Story-wise, this is definitely where this show shined in my opinion. First, from a world-building standpoint, they not only did an excellent job at highlighting the importance of not just the Precure of this season, but also of the whole franchise. The previous year's All-Stars movies opened the doors to crossovers, while this season gave them legacies. From having a retired Cure being a recurring character to the Precure pals itself, there's a good reason this is often recommended as one of the first seasons to anyone new to the franchise. By giving any hero a legacy, you significantly increase the weight of their accomplishments. The worst thing any series could do is either belittle or misrepresent its legacy. And yet the guy who wrote this crap also happened to write the best episodes of this series. Strange world we live in. Just to avoid having any more blackouts, I'll save talking about Shoujo Yonemura until we get to the season where he was the head writer. But regardless, he and the rest of the writers did an excellent job at expanding the Precure universe. Moving on to the characters, let's again start off with the baddies, who off the back I'll say most of them didn't really come off all that great to me. I mean, I didn't think they were bad or anything, the apostles could be quite entertaining at times, but I never felt as attached to them as, say, the agents of Labyrinth. I think part of the reason was that, unlike these guys, the agents had a lot more interaction between each other. Through it, not only did we get to see more of their personalities, but also some camaraderie develop between the villains. Compare that against the apostles who just all of a sudden are worried about Sasarina enough that they entrust their bracelets with her. It's the same problem I have with the villains of Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. I like them fine, but unless you show me more of Loki and Diabolical interacting, I'm not gonna feel anything when the former dies in the latter's arms. Same problem here. They're fun, but ultimately kind of one note. Same thing with their bosses. Dune, we really didn't learn much about him other than that he's been fighting Precure for a long time and was driven by hatred towards them for constantly being him. Though, to be fair, when you're a big bad of his type, you don't really need to have a lot of character, you just need to be really imposing, which he accomplished just fine. Sabak was there. Just a guy ordering around his troops and not doing a great job of it at times. He did get a little more character when he was revealed to be Yuri's father, which lasted about the length of one episode before he went boom. Dark Precure was easily the standout amongst these somewhat bland villains, in particular when you consider the theming between her and Yuri. Dark is meant to represent the far side, or dark side of the moon, the part that's not visible from Earth. We can still see most of the moon's surface, about 59% of it, however we would never see the remaining 41% until we achieve space travel. Thus, you could say the uneven halves of the Moonlight Seed represent Yuri and Dark. Except Dark took the larger half, which to her represented the ultimate symbol of her victory, as the positions of the moon had essentially switched. And she had become the only daughter visible in the eyes of her father, so having that taken away from her after Moonlight returned ultimately broke her and led to her defeat. And in defeat, she came to realize she could never replace Yuri, finally dropping the Moonlight Seed as a sign of recognition. In spite of having very limited appearances, Dark probably had the most characterization amongst the villains, on top of just being plain awesome. Now again, I don't necessarily dislike these villains because for all their lack of personality or chemistry, I do think they serve an important narrative purpose. That being how they act as a counter to the main theme of this series, change, which is what a lot of people, including our heroines, have to go through at some point. We'll get to them in just a bit, but first the side characters, which should be quick since there's not a lot of them. Karko was another good mentor character. She was constantly guiding the team, giving them advice, and of course leading them to all of their power-ups. Best part of it all was that she wasn't overly cryptic about all of it, and just told them the facts, including the risk involving trying to acquire such powers. Is it really too much trouble to ask certain mentors to explain the fine print to their students? But yeah, she fulfilled her mentor role fantastically and even proved that she was still a bit of an ass kicker. Seriously, somebody called the JSA, this granny still got it. The fairies poop seeds. That's probably the most defining characteristic about them. I mean, other than being a bit annoying and having designs that I didn't care for. Nothing really much else to say, they're kinda standard fare for fairies, and I kind of miss my weasel buddy now. Finally, moving into our main characters, let's start with the Sixth Rangers. Yuri was a girl who really needed to learn how to let go of her past. After her father left to find the magical tree of happiness and never came back, she and her mother went through some rough times. So after she became a Precure, Yuri tried to alleviate not just her mother's sorrows, but also everyone else's so that they wouldn't suffer like she did. This included trying to fight a one Precure war against the Desert Apostles so that no one else would get hurt. Thing is though, not even Superman can shoulder the weight of the entire world alone, and learning this unfortunately came at a very high price for Yuri. In spite of having the best of intentions, she lost someone dear to her, and as a result, not only did she become even more reclusive than ever before, but lost the will to fight out of fear that she'd mess things up again. And it was only through seeing the efforts and determination of her juniors that she realized that she needed to stop living in the past. While holding on to the memories of her friend and father were important, she had to live in the here and now. She almost backpedaled on this when she declared to Dune that she would avenge her father, but someone reminded her of the lessons she had learned. We'll get to her in a bit, but as for Yuri, she was an amazing character. While undeniably flawed, she did come off as a seasoned warrior more than worthy of the title of Precure in spite of many, many hardships. Seriously, the writers kind of overdid with traumatizing the poor little lady. Hey Aoi, could you spare some of your ice cream? Moving on to Itsuki, her thing was that she needed to learn how to embrace more of what she liked, which of course were cute things like plushies and dresses. However, the pressures of living up to her family's expectations got in the way, cause apparently you can't mix martial arts and cute things. Yeah, try and tell that to Mion Sonozaki. Actually, don't. Just don't, for everyone's safety. But yeah, in an interesting turn, most of the pressure she felt was actually self-inflicted, as her family never really demanded that she inherit their dojo, and just wanted her to live out her life as she wanted. Okay, on the one hand, I'm glad they didn't go with the cliche abusive family trope, But as a result of this little revelation, Itsuki's character arc failed to have much direction afterwards, and they just ended up repeating the same shtick with her over and over. Honestly, I think they should have saved this scene for much later in the series, like maybe the third act, and just let Itsuki herself try to struggle with the issue of balancing out her hobbies and then realize that she can do both. She was going in the right directions with her participation in the fashion show and her appearance at the end of the series, but even stuff like that felt kind of sudden and not like actual progression. Sadly, Itsuki suffered from the Yellow Cure curse where, in spite of a decent debut, they kind of get the shaft in terms of character development. Because after Itsuki became Cure Sunshine, she just became the nice girl of the group. Nothing wrong with that, just that it's kind of sad that the last solo episode she got was more focused on her fairy than her. Nowhere near my favorite of this season, but her kind and open personality makes her easy to like at least. Erika was a character who needed to realize her own self-worth and stop comparing herself to her sister. Yeah, at first you wouldn't think someone this bombastic would have low self-esteem, and yet as we learn more about her, it becomes clear that it's part of her coping mechanism. However, as the series went on, she learned that trying to overcompensate and being overly aggressive towards others wasn't going to get her anywhere. In fact, such callous behavior would sometimes even end up harming others as a result. So thankfully, she had significantly mellowed out by the end and had become far more aware of the needs and concerns of others. She even managed to organize a very successful fashion show thanks to her good planning and recognizing the needs of the light music club and how they could benefit off each other. Granted, she did occasionally backpedal on this development. Yeah, great consistency immediately following up the Heartcatch Mirage 2-parter with an episode of her being a lazy ass. Nonetheless, there's an even more significant reason why Erika is often considered to be one of those well-received Precure ever. She's just plain hilarious. Up until Miyuki and her wide-angle lens came around, Erika had the most meme-worthy faces in the franchise and still entertains to this day with them. Keep the laughs coming, you little weirdo. Interestingly enough, Tsubomi started off on the exact opposite end of the personality spectrum, being more than a bit of an introvert. It was an unfortunate consequence of her holding back the tears she felt every time her parents left on business for too long. If you repress such emotions, chances are good such tendencies would follow you into at least adolescence. Granted, she did try to break such habits, but yeah, wasn't exactly doing a great job at it at first. It was only through becoming a Precure and interacting with her teammates that she truly started to open up, or blossom as her name suggests. Through her 10 years of Precure, she had to deal with a lot, like her enemies and allies calling her the weakest Precure ever. From a technical standpoint, they were probably right as she had no real athletic background to speak of, and therefore couldn't properly control her Precure skill set at first. However, what she did have was the dedication to not let others cry like she once did. That plus the lineage she learned she had to live up to drove her to become stronger. And while it was a gradual process, she did grow into a true leader who wouldn't let anyone diverge down a path of self-destruction. Really, by the end, we had seen an interesting shift in her and Erika's personalities. Because of their interactions, sometimes Erika would become the voice of reason, while Tsubomi would become the mortal mouth. Either that, or more of Mizuki was slipping out. But yeah, as I just said, Erika started off rather abrasive and then became more aware of other people's feelings. This was in no small part thanks to her partner's sensitivity and kindness rubbing off on her. So likewise, Erika's unorthodox personality helped the originally shy and withdrawn Tsubomi become far more passionate and open about her goals to the point that she wanted to become an astronaut by the end. Alright, maybe they overdid with the astronaut stuff and everything, but that's beside the point. The point is that they, as well as Itsuki and Yuri, all grew stronger by interacting off one another. By exchanging morals and ideas, people can broaden their horizons. That was the main thing the fashion show was meant to get across, and how our heroines truly began to change. And this development truly reached its zenith once they cleared their palace trials. Through them, they managed to find the ability to accept not just their current selves, but their past selves as well, because as much as people can change, they should never forget where they start from and eventually find a happy balance between their past and current selves. It's all a part of growing up, and probably the most important message this great Precure season gets across. Heartcatch is truly a wonderful season. While it does have its problems like underdeveloped villains and side characters, as well as one too many filler episodes, especially in this final third, it ultimately doesn't detract from the fact that we got a great show out of it. Our heroines develop realistically, not instantly pulling character 180s. The victims of the week, while they did get repetitive, did also provide good drama and realistic turmoil. And most of all, it's a series that just makes you feel good. From its comedy to its action to its grand scale, it just gives the viewer such a strong sense of accomplishment every time they finish watching it. I know I'll get that same feeling whenever I come back to this series, as it's truly caught mine and everyone else's heart. Our time with Heartcatch Precure is not yet over though. Next time, we're heading back to the world of crossovers with the second installment of the Precure's All-Star films. We'll see if this movie can match up to its predecessor's high standards, or become as base-breaking as the Age of Ultron.
That was dramatic.
Oh, shut up, you tin can. Until next time, though, farewell for now, my friends.